Welcome back, YouTube party people. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Do it before I even get into the podcast episode because today is going to be a good one. I'm answering let's start recording the podcast, shall we? So today I thought it would be fun to answer some long-standing questions. I know I've talked about this on the podcast before, but I am an atheist. Shock, awe, surprise. And I think it's very interesting to be a Black atheist in general, just because we do tend to be a religious people. And I feel like people will kind of get over the fact that you're not Christian, maybe if you're like Muslim, but witchcraft is a no. I'm not a witch. Like, truly, I think there's nothing out there. I also think I've kind of avoided making this episode because I don't like to offend people for no reason, especially if there's people that have done nothing to me. At the same time, I don't know how I can talk about this without being blatantly offensive. So this is your warning. You are choosing to listen to this. You're a person of faith. You don't want to listen. That's totally fine. I'm not going out of my way to be like, oh, I think you're stupid for believing in it, but there's just no way that I can discuss all the reasons why I absolutely know and feel like this isn't real and have it not be some sort of attack. Trust me, I've believed this since I was 10. I am 28 years old. This is almost 2 decades worth of being like this. People brace themselves and they'll be, oh, my nails and my glasses match. People will brace themselves and they'll be like, oh, I can totally have this conversation. And they'll be unfiltered. And again, I'm not calling you dumb. I'm not calling you stupid. I'm just saying I don't understand why I would think there's a God when slavery and rape exists. Now we're looking at each other crazy. Anyway, I get a lot of questions about atheism because I think people assume that because so many atheists who are very vocal about it have branded themselves as bitter and angry. And I know people always bring up that quote that atheists are actually just very mad at God. Put a pin in that, we'll get to that. That I, in my personal time, consume myself with what can best be described as church hurt. I've seen Christians use this phrase to describe the hurt that you get from a church, and then they kind of obsess over it and they talk about it, and there's this whole genre on social media where people will deconstruct from whatever strict religious upbringing they had, and then they'll they're like, I don't believe in God, but I'm still really obsessed with what Christians do, because it's usually Christianity or the harm they perpetuate. And I mean, religion is made up of human beings, so I'm not of the opinion that any one religion is bad or worse than the other. People do awful things in the name of anything to justify their means because they think the end is salvation, whether it's from God or an alien or L. Ronald Hubbard, is that his name? The Scientology cult guy. So it's I don't know. I don't think that Islam is a religion of terrorism just because people have done terrorism in its name. The same goes for Israel and the Jewish religion. I think some people have done terrible things in the name of Christianity. I don't think that means Christians are bad. I think the whole sort of thing about the episode is that I really don't think about it at all. I get a lot of questions that are Alexia, can you address so-and-so going on in the church or tactics in the church? And it's no. So to start from the beginning, I was raised in a very religious family. My mom is very religious. My dad grew up Catholic and then kind of became a non-denominational Christian. But my mom consistently took us to church every Sunday of my life until I could stop going for myself when I was 18 and would spend a minimum of 3 hours, and that was on the shortest days. My mom was the type, my mom would go to 2 services in a day, actually. But then at some point when I was 7, I put my foot down and I was like, Sheila, you can't do this to people. So I think I was always raised to pray before I was eating, and God is supreme. And I was raised in a Baptist church, which is also why church took so long. And then I think I was 8. Well, the first time I remember having a religious freak out, I was 5, because I was who invented God? And I just kind of invented my mom's no, he's, from the beginning. And I'm right, but that doesn't make sense, kind of. So then I just kind of imagined a pair of Mickey Mouse hands. And then the first time I realized that like something probably was up was when I was 8. And I was like, I just don't. That was around the time that I noticed there was a economic difference between the way that I got to live and the way some of my friends got to live, because I would go to Sunday school and some of my friends were praying for like I was praying for a Barbie house. And like what are those motorized cars that you could like drive around? I was really obsessed as a kid with the idea that I could get in a motorized car and get on the turnpike and take myself across the state of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Sorry. I don't know why I thought that, was obsessed with that idea up until I became obsessed with Vespas. And so I would I was praying for toys, and I remember like my friends, because we would all go around the room and talk about what we wanted, and then my friends would be praying for like food or shelter, or like, you know, my mom and I remember one girl in my Sunday school class was like, you know, like, I want to get out of this homeless shelter. And she ended up not coming back to the church, like, I think 1 year, but I don't think her family ever got out of that shelter. But I was getting everything I wanted. And then, you know, we were always taught like God will reward you if you're good, but I was a really bad kid. Like I've never, and I know sometimes people are reluctant to be like, not bad in the sense, like bad in that I was plotting. I would do plots as a child. Some of them were foiled, some of them were not. Like if I could scheme a way to like get out of a test, or for reference, in kindergarten I was on the the red stoplight so often that they just stopped like punishing me, and I read every book in my kindergarten classroom. And then that's when they would let me have like Alexia library time, where I would just go either to the library to read a bunch of books or to the gym to just do laps, because I had ADHD, and ADHD children are difficult, and I was also foiling and scheming. Would steal and lie a lot, actually. I used to tell my little sister to like, we would be in the store, and I just thought I still think it's funny, but I've been told it's inappropriate. I thought it was funny to tell, be like, Alana, run down the hall, and then my mom would be like, Alana, and then I would be like, awesome, now I can do what I want and go look at the goods and put a bunch of stuff in the cart. I'm pretty sure none of that is in the Bible, and all of it is not good. I would try to fudge. Report cards, you know, they would always put in your folder to take home. I would throw it in the trash multiple years in a row, to the point where the teachers started handing them to my parents directly, because they were like, and the report card would always say things like, she's very bright, she doesn't do the work, and she talks constantly. She's in trouble again. She told the teacher, or I just would get into it with teachers, like they'd be like, you have to do this, and I'd be like, you can't make me. Like, you can take away recess, you can say you can't go to recess, but you can't stop me from having fun in my head. I'll never forget, we still keep in contact to this day, her name was Miss Williams. But I remember her being like, trying to explain to my parents that what they were doing wasn't effective, because they were like, she's just gonna sit there and daydream, like she didn't care. So all of this to say that I knew I was like a schemy little child, and it didn't make sense why I was getting rewarded. And then I feel like I learned more about slavery. I don't know when I became conscious of slavery. I had an Addie doll, and I read the book. I know it was, my mom said, one of the first like books I was reading on my own. So from a young age, it never sat right with me that we were screaming out to God and he did nothing. And then I remember asking my Sunday school teacher, because she was explaining, because again, this is like a Black Baptist church. If you know, you know. If you don't, slavery was very much talked about. And she was explaining that like they called out for salvation, and like we prayed and prayed and we were finally free. And I was like, well, you know, did the white people who owned us, did they go to heaven? And she's like, if they accepted God into their heart. And I was like, wait, so you live your whole life as a slave in bondage, and then you go to heaven and you're kicking it in heaven with the person who owned you, and they don't get punished because Jesus died for their sins. But you could live your life in bondage, and you could not accept God into your heart, and then you would go to hell? So then when I was 9, I was like, okay, I don't think I believe in this. And it was like a Christmas service or something where there wasn't Sunday school. So the pastor was like, if you're having doubts, like come up here and we'll get you baptized. So I went through a whole baptism class, and they put me in the adult class because I was smart and I was like on an advanced reading level. So I was doing the class with the adults, and there was homework and assigned reading, and I really liked the assigned reading, you know? And that's when I kind of decided, like, maybe this isn't real. Then I tried to say that to my mom, and she was like, you don't know what you're talking about. Then I got dipped in the water. It was pretty fun in the sense that, like, my parents had a party for me, and I really liked the attention. And then I think I was in, like, 6th grade when I started being like, I don't want to go to church anymore. Like, I don't want to do this. Oh, because also when you get baptized, no matter what age you were at the church that I grew up in, you were expected to tithe. But, like, I didn't have any money, so my parents would be like, here's your allowance. Remember to set 10% aside to tithe. And I was like, wait, why? Why does God want my money? I want my money. So yeah, all in all, I would say maybe it was like 10 or 11 when I would just kind of privately thought to myself, like, I don't want to do this. And I did like being baptized, though. They baptized us. The tub was very warm. I liked that. It was fun. Oh, and I also got my own tithing envelopes. I was very excited. But, like, I wasn't excited about the Jesus part. Anyway, I told my parents when I was 13. I don't know if that was a great decision because they've been harassing me about it for my entire life. Usually this is the part where someone's like, oh, did they respond well? No, obviously not. I'm telling you about parents that are super religious, and I told them that I don't believe in God, and my mom is like a Sunday school teacher and goes to church 3 times a week and watches multiple. She has different churches in different areas of the country, so she times it so she spends all day Sunday going to church. There's only so many words in that book. I don't know how you can keep learning about it over and over again, but she does. So is she happy about it? No. No. It's very distressing to her and my stepmom and my dad, apparently. They get really upset about it. Does that affect me? No. So once I realized that I like wasn't into the whole God thing, that's when I was like, well, I don't want to pay attention in church. I was required to go until I was 18 because I did live in my parents' house. We'll get to the teenage years. So at first I would try to bring in books. My mom was like, you can't have secular books in church. Then I ripped pages out of a Bible, and it was like a children's Bible that had like a hard cover. So I ripped the pages out and started shoving like little books in there. My mom's like, stop doing that to Bibles. Like, so I was like, well, I want to be able to bring my book. So I would bring my book. By the time I was a teenager, my parents didn't care that I was on the phone. And then I remember one time my dad's like, well, I'm taking your phone. So I just like had my laptop in the car, and I literally got on tumblr.com in the back pews and started reblogging. And my parents were like, you can bring the book back, Alexia. Like, so I didn't really absorb the material from then on, because honestly, being in church for like 4 hours was a really good place to get the reading on. You know, I mean, I've read some fantastic books. And also, I feel like when you read, you can tune out sounds. Like, it never became, like, I didn't care. You know, you sit, you stand, you sit, you stand. It also became a thing where, like, at this point, because I grew up in, like, a very, very large church. And then when I was in middle school, my parents switched to another one. And at that point, people in the church, like, I remember my sister's 11 months younger, and they would invite her to the teen stuff, and they'd be like, we don't think Alexia wants to come. And I'd be like, that's correct. I don't want to go to a youth group and talk about virginity. I don't even think virginity's real. And I was real for saying that. So I can't even say that, like, I grew up with some, like, I do have friends who talk about, like, the side effects of, like, growing up religious or absorbing the messaging. Other than sort of a hilarious, like, I know I'm being funny, I don't actually believe in omens, but, like, belief in omens or love saying, like, you know, they will pay what they owe, or God is going to put a curse on you. I can't really say that there's any long-standing effect. Oh, I mean, I do love drama and I do love singing. I used to be in the choir. I'm a good singer, and my parents thought it would make me more religious. It did not. I just love the attention from singing. Wow, I hope nobody listens to this and thinks she's a really bad person. I just from a very young age have never understood why I would do something that I didn't decide I wanted to do. And it's like, well, you know, once I got older and I could decide my own, well, Well, once I got old enough and I decided that like what I wanted to do was, it's also a hassle getting in trouble all the time. Like it becomes inconvenient to constantly be on a teacher's shit list. It's just not worth it, you know? So I did have to give the context into some of my childhood to like put this together, that when I was 18 and I was a legal adult and my parents couldn't be like, listen, like you can make your own choice at 18. Well, they didn't really say you can make your own choice at 18. They were just like, you're not a child, so like I guess we can't force you to. And I was like, cool, you'll never see me again. And I think I've been in a church, not counting being there for a wedding, 5 times. Oh, it was so miserable every time. I hid in the bathroom one Easter. I was like trying to be nice to my mom because she was really sick, and she was like, can you just come with me this Easter? She wasn't gonna die. I don't know why she was being guilt trippy, but she was like, can you just come with me? And I just sat in the bathroom because the pastor like made all the women stand in a circle in the middle and then had the men gather around them and pray. And I was like, oh, I'm too much of a feminist for this. Also, I'm recording this on live and someone's like, one of the hardest parts about leaving a religion is losing friends because they think you're lost. And again, I didn't have to deal with that because I didn't have any friends from church, because I didn't talk to, like, it was very clear that I didn't want to be there, and I didn't talk to people, and I would usually get in trouble on Sundays because honestly I was being a bit rude. Like a deacon would be like, hello Alexi, and I'd be like, ugh. I shouldn't have done that in hindsight, but there were no like friends to have. There was no religious community. I didn't do like Young Life, which was the thing, or like I went to a very Christian high school. It was a public school, but it was a very Christian high school. And people would talk about God all the time, and I was like, I just don't care. I remember there was like this girl I used to be friends with. She was like, oh my God, we're going for the March for Life. I was like, Natalia, I believe in abortion. Like, no. So that was annoying. Then my parents tried to get me to go to a religious college because they were like, maybe you'll find your faith there. And honestly, I got a really good scholarship to one of them, like 90% tuition paid. But then they said that you had to go to church on Sundays. And I was like, if you think that I'm in my free time going somewhere where like you can't have condoms on campus and you have to go to church on a Sunday, you're smoking crack. I went to a very liberal arts college. And it was the best thing for me. I had a great time, as I've said before. But I had to give the background to say that I don't personally identify with this need to like make my atheism all about getting back at like my church hurt, mostly because I don't have any complicated feelings about growing up a Christian. You can't really have complicated feelings about something that I actively every single Sunday of my life made a concerted effort to not pay attention to. Who are the books of the Bible? I don't know. Deuteronomy, Nemesis, Genesis, Roman, Psalms, Peter, Paul, Job. Oh, I used to love the book of Job. Low-key, it's a good book. I've also read the Bible twice. I think the last time I did it, I was 16 just to prove a point to my mom. Right. When I was a teenager, my parents started trying to bribe me to go to church, so that I would be like, can I go out with my friends Sunday or on Saturday? And my mom would be like, do 30 minutes without looking at your phone. I'd be like, yeah, it's easy enough. I can just close my eyes, but let's do it. So to prove a point, I really wanted to go on this like trip to Disney or something. And I was like, yeah, I'll read the Bible. It's not a hard book to get through. A little tedious, some chapters. What's another one? Revelations, Omens. That was also fun. I do love the whole end of the world thing. Very dramatic. And I do think parts of it were very beautiful. Like I thought, I know I've said this before, but I really like Jesus's teachings, be a good person, hang out with whores, capitalism should be abolished, treat all lepers the way you would treat a king. Like that's really dope messaging. That's pretty cool. It's definitely influenced me. Do I think that he was a magic person? No. Do I think he was a person? I don't bother to look it up. If the angel Gabriel, that's the person who appeared to Mary, if the angel Gabriel appeared in front of me right now and was like, I can take you on a quest to see God, I would be like, no thanks. Or I would go just get up there and punch him. And I don't mean that in a sort of like angry way, but I just think like it would be one thing if life was peaches and cream, right? If we had no problems and the world was fine and just, and someone's like if it was sort of a Bilbo Baggins situation, right? Where like my life was cool and dope, and then someone's like, you can go on this, you know, quest to learn about the universe and challenge yourself and do adventures. And it was like, but my baseline is sort of comfort, and like the whole world is just comfortable. I mean, it actually wasn't in the Hobbit world, but I don't know, if that's all I knew was comfort and I didn't know that other people suffered, then I would probably be like, cool. But the thing is like the world is awful, and there's genocide and rape and crimes against children and murder and other atrocities, and humans do terrible things to each other. And then I feel, what is the prize? Like, going to meet the mastermind of all of this? You're an idiot. You're not a good planner. Somebody planned a party and they were like, okay, you can come to this party. You might not have a good time. You don't have a choice if you want to be there. If you try to remove yourself from the party, like, the other party goers are going to think that you went to hell. Also, I invented the concept of hell. When you're here at the party, you have to do your best to like live by all of these rules, even though I put you in a party and things are really cool and the rules don't always make sense. And you can't be gay for some reason, according to a lot of denominations. And also there's going to be crimes against humanity happening all around you, maybe even to you. I can't control that. But at the end of the party, I need you to accept me into your heart and tell me this was the best party ever. And then I get to take you to a better party where I guarantee nothing bad will happen. But if you lose faith that nothing bad will happen, like, you will go to hell, which again, I invented. You would be like, that's not a good party. And if you can control so many things about the party, like my fate, you know what I mean? And like a little bit of a predestination where like you made me in your image and then there's all these evil people. Like, why are the evil people in your image? And then I've read the Bible. Some people will be like, oh, well, you know, that's the devil. But like, the devil's kind of winning. He's like whooping God's ass. Like, it's actually very crazy. You know what I mean? You just like make this person up and you're like, I used to love them a lot. I didn't see that they betrayed me. They're also at this party and they're going to tempt you. And again, you can't get out of this party and you have to have fun. Like, I wouldn't want to go to that party. And if someone's like, oh, well, you finally get to meet like the maker of the party, the host. That's the word that I'm looking for, the host. I would go up to them and I'd be like, you did a bad fucking job. Like, that's how I would feel. If I'm wrong about the whole God thing and I get to meet God, or, you know, Yue, Allah, Buddha, I don't know, and I meet them, I'd be like, you're kind of an idiot. I don't want to see what your version of heaven looks like. Like, if your version of hell is like fire and brimstone, I'm not even going to get on the whole theological argument that, like, you know, the efficacy of the Bible, or like these written words, or like whether or not we actually have the names of the actual dudes who are writing the irrelevant. But I was like, you're not, like, I don't want to be here with you. You know what I mean? Because truly, what could your heaven look like if this was your best on earth? And so because I just have, we would be like, you didn't do a good job. I'm not that interested. And I truly feel like my disinterest also extends to, like, I know I've said this on the pod before, but if I'm not going to believe in God, I'm not going to believe in astrology. Like, no offense, but if I were to believe in like an all-encompassing, the way the universe works, I am believing in magic. I'm believing in dragons. I believe in the ability to flight beyond the type of flight that you can get, again, when you are abstinent and also pure of heart. Like, I'm so sorry. Why would I believe in the Roman Grecian calendar and the moon? And somehow that has an effect on my personality. So it always makes me laugh whenever people are like, oh yeah, like, I'm an atheist, but I believe in spirituality. And it's like, no, you just don't believe in Jesus. And then this is the point where people are like, oh, maybe you would like spirituality. Listen, to the people who are like, wait, hold on. Someone in the live was like, you're going to attract the celibacy warriors again. I know, and I can't emphasize enough, unless we were to ever go out on a Saturday night, how much that is not me. I feel the same way as when I kept getting posted on divestment pages, and then I had to keep making those PSAs being like, please don't put me on a divestment page, because I find it really offensive. Not the interracial dating part. Interracial dating, cool, rocks. You should go for it, you know? Just like all the creepy, weird... Anyway, we're getting off topic. Back to the whole spirituality thing. And people are like, oh, well, you know, when we were in slavery, we practiced witchcraft. Where did that get us? Not free. So... can't help but feel like it's, you know what I mean? Like, oh, here's a spell to make someone here's a spell to protect yourself. And it's like, oh, why couldn't we protect ourselves from like racism? Like, where's a spell to fix that? You know what I mean? Even when people are like karma, like I believe in karma in the sense that it's like a good metaphor for something, but like if karma was real, wouldn't exist. Sorry, I just think that the number of generational evil you would have racked up, you wouldn't be able to continue your bloodline, and whole groups of people wouldn't exist. So that clearly can't be real. You know what I mean? I also don't feel like I need it to tell me to be a good person. Like I'm pretty sure just like not murdering people and not lying, other than in situations where it's like really convenient to lie. Like I went to the Whitney Museum this weekend and I did tell the guy that I was 24. I'm not 24, I'm 28, but I didn't want to pay full price. That's wrong. But it's not like just not like an evil, you know? Well, I guess it's pretty bad. Oh, Matthew's really clawing at the door. I had to put a whole... You know what? How is he getting the door open? Oh my god. You know, my uncle told me that I talk about Matthew on the podcast too much, and he's like, I don't even understand how people sit through this. And it's like, yeah, because you don't see how he acts. Like, you can't see it right now, but he's literally pushing open the door with all of his might. And the full laundry bin that I put in front of the door so that he can't get it. I mean, honestly, and he's not going to stop doing it. He's just pacing in front of the door. Oh, he's angered. And then I tried to tell him that people love Matthew, or at least they like this podcast enough to sort of grit and bear it through the parts. Anyway, oh, for God's sake, you can't come in. You see his little paws. Where was I going with this? Where was I going with this? Oh, yeah. I would... Fine. Fine. You can come in. You want to come up? Here, come on. Yeah, come here. Do you have anything you want to say? Welcome back to your weekly Matthew interruption. Sorry, I was really trying to talk about him less. But you see, and if you're watching on YouTube, he inserts himself. Anyway, I have no interest in any of it, and I just feel like, oh yes, the lie about the Whitney Museum. I just feel like I don't need someone to tell me to, like, I think when I die, I go nowhere. There's just nothing. Like, I am a person because brains rock. The human brain is really cool, and I think animal brains are cool as well. But like, do I think I have a soul or an essence that will exist after I die? No. I don't think that makes my life any less meaningful. I think it reiterates the fact, like, I only have one, and then people are like, what's the meaning of life? I don't think I have to know why I'm doing something to know that I want to do it and have fun. There's just like a level of whimsy. Like, my atheism is driven by that. I don't know if you picked up on this, me talking about my childhood, but like the deep belief that I want to do what I want when I want, and I want to be the type of person who contributes something and, I don't know, makes an impact on society, and I don't want to make an impact for being a terrible fucking person, so I try to be a good person. I think I do my best. I don't always succeed. But then do not use me to rocket launch off me. But like, I don't like being told to do something under threat, you know what I mean? Like, I am an adult, and I love being an adult more than I ever loved being a child, because I love the absolute freedom to make my own choices and what I want, which is why I'm not like a great person to talk about like, oh, these are the social pressures that I feel. I mean, we live in a society, I can't say that I'm immune to all of them, but I really don't, I'm not gonna open the door, you just got in here. Immune to certain, I don't know, like I don't want to follow a bunch of rules. That's why I couldn't commit to Buddhism. I really loved the meditation part, but then they were like, no alcohol, and I was like, oh god. And I was also like, do I think that I need a higher power to be happy? No. Again, because I think God or whatever omniscient being or beings runs the universe is a terrible fucking job, I am not comforted by the knowledge that they're watching me. If anything, I would find that threatening. And I remember the feeling of anxiety I had when I was a very small child, and I still believed in it, that like, oh, you know, it felt like Santa Claus. Like, I hated the panic that came along with Christmas time, because then adults would be like, Santa's watching you. And then it would be like, why? I just don't care for it. I just don't care for it. It's not that I'm ignoring y'all's questions like, oh, you know, can you talk about the manipulative aspect of the church? But I don't care. I don't keep up with them. Do I have friends who are religious? Yeah. Do they talk to me about religion? No. I would tune them out. Again, I ripped pages out of a Bible in front of my religious parents to be able to read a book in church. It's not gonna, but you know, I like my friends. I'm happy for them when my friends are like, oh, my relationship with God has deepened. That's great. Do I think people can hear God? I don't think about what other people have going on in their heads like that. If you tell me that you feel like it's real, it's totally real. If I tell you I don't think it's real, it's not real to me. Maybe it's real to you. And I just, on that note, I have no, hey, stop it. I have no interest in trying to convince people, like I know I prefaced the beginning of the episode with this, but I have no interest in trying to tell people that what they believe in is wrong. I don't care if you believe in it. I just care to the extent that like you can't influence laws and try to get people killed, and you can't, it'll be a complete waste of your time. And I feel like people are so shocked, but they're like, but then how do you live? Like, what are your soul? You have to believe in something. It's like, you actually don't have to do anything you don't want to do. And I don't want to live in fear or be fearful or feel like whatever, you know? I don't even want to have that conversation with people, because again, I've had it so often in almost like 20 years. Somebody asked, is there an episode of the pod that talks about Christianity as it relates to Black people? And I think that kind of brings up the next question, which is, I'm not super interested in the African American experience as it relates to Christianity, because again, I ignored every Sunday that I was going to church intentionally. I didn't want to pay attention to it. I have a very strong will, so it's really like, I don't know. Why do we believe in Jesus? Colonization. I think if I had to pick a religion, it wouldn't be the religion that slave owners taught us. Wouldn't be me. People got mad at me when I said that at the family reunion. They shouldn't have asked me my honest opinion. Everybody knows what it is. And I didn't volunteer that information, okay? They just said it. They said, you know, why do you feel this way? And I said, oof, I apologize. I said, well, I've read, you know, the handbooks on, we talked about this in the Sinners episode. Go back to that if you want to hear about that. I'm not into it. I just don't want to do it. There's certain things about faith that I think is really cool. Catholic Church is sick. Matzo ball soup, sick. Iftar, sick. Believing in God, boring. Not for me. Many atheists are annoying. And so I'm also making this podcast to be like, hey, some of us aren't annoying. You know, I'm not here to take out my personal vendetta against other people. Someone said communism crackers are good. I used to order them off of Amazon and eat them wholesale. They smack, dude. They smack. With peanut butter? Oh, have you ever made a little peanut butter and jelly communion wafer after church sometimes during communion, because I got baptized when I was so young? I used to take them from the thing that they were passing around and put some extras in my church purse. Again, that was wrong. I shouldn't have done that. But it was such a delight to get back in my room and pour the contents of my purse out on the floor and eat the little wafers and drink the little grape juice. I'm gonna order some more off of Amazon, I think. Oh, I feel like Winnie the Pooh, you know? Now I'm in the mood for some food. Boop, 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 boop. So yeah, I think that answers some questions that I've just kind of avoid. Because also, I try to avoid it, because then people get to, like, again, I'm not discrediting like the hurt that comes from religion or trying to underplay it at all, but I just have it's not like my story, and so I'm not, oh, the Apple Watch stand is so bad. I'm not motivated by the like, this need to be right. Like, to me it represents, I also just believe that I'm an atheist in all things. And that, like, because I don't believe in God, I feel like that's what makes it so easy to, like, not buy into patriarchy or white supremacy. Obviously, there's a link between all of those things. But I just think, you know, if I'm not going to believe in a God, like, why would I believe that just because I was born with a vagina, I have to act a certain way, in a way that goes against, like, common sense reasoning, my better judgment, and would make another human being my master simply because he has a peenie? Why would I believe that? I don't even believe in God. Why would I believe that white people are better than me? They're just pale. Like, why would I be stupid just because I'm black? You know what I mean? Like, it's very easy to not believe in those things when you don't believe in this sort of, like, there's a higher order to all. I don't think there's a higher order to anything. And then sometimes people are like, well, what do you believe in? That we're highly evolved amoebas floating on a space rock in a universe beyond our comprehension. No matter how hard we try, we'll never comprehend space or other life forms in my lifetime, so I don't really think about it. It'd be cool if they came down, maybe handled some business, but they probably won't in my lifetime, and I'm cool with that. And whenever I get too stressed out, I always just remind myself, like, you're floating on a space rock and nothing really matters. And I find a lot of comfort in that. Like, there is nothing that matters. So I get to choose what matters. I get to make my own rules for life. I hope you find this inspiring, or not. I hope it was a little bit of a glimpse in my brain. We got some childhood lore. I'm not a bad kid anymore. And I don't plot. Or if I was plotting, I wouldn't say it on a podcast, obviously. But send in your topic suggestions. I want to do something a little fun, lighthearted, and also I just think the questions have become, you know, I continue to see the DMs, so it's like, let's just get into it. Okay, thank you so much. Love you. Goodbye. Mwah. Bye.